There are definitely intense moments when your child is very sick and in an ICU. And it is extremely overwhelming for the first few days, weeks, even months, because not only are you dealing with your sick child, but you're kind of having to learn how the hospital works and pick up on the medical jargon as well. So the internet was our friend, taken with a grain of salt, absolutely. So, but we did a lot of our own research and we just asked a lot of questions. What was great about the hospital staff here is that they just taught us along the way. So, we knew what to do if, God forbid, her trach came out. We knew how to put it back in, and they let us do that process hands-on before we even left this hospital. So that was amazing for us. I think one good thing that we got out of here, aside from obviously a pretty healthy child at the end of it, is just the relationships that we built with the doctors and the nurses and the therapists here, and they really helped us get ready to go home. I felt like we just had to be organized once we get home because there's so much information, especially when you're in a long-term care situation with multiple specialists and doctors, and we had nursing at home and also early intervention. So there's a number of different parties, and there's so much information sharing that happens within that. So I just felt like I had to be organized. I had to have all the information in one place. And then anytime we went to see someone, especially if it was in a hospital setting, whether it was planned or unplanned, they ask you the same questions. They want to know, what medication is your child on? What's her medical history? What other doctors does she see? And it's a lot of information just in those few questions. So I always made sure that I had copies of her medications, when did she take them, how much. I made sure we had a list of all the doctors that she saw and for what reason. And then I also, just more for my own knowledge, but just had a summary that I had printed up based on the questions that we got asked every time we went. So that is what I always carried with me. That was in the front of the binder. And then, whenever we got discharge notes or, any follow-up from the doctors, the nursing notes, the early intervention notes, those were all just compiled in that binder as well. So it was just kind of a one-stop shop. So one thing, especially in the hospital setting, especially in an ICU as well, is that they do round every morning. And it was important for me to attend those rounds because that was a place for me to to learn and hear what everybody else, what all the doctors and nurses thought about her situation, but also for me to ask questions as well, or to give my thoughts on how I thought perhaps maybe she had been overnight when the attending doctor wasn't there. And so I made sure in the morning before rounds that I thought about the questions I wanted to ask, or any specific things that I thought would be important for the doctors to hear. So I just made sure that I was prepared for rounds, or if we knew that one of the consulting specialists was coming in, I would do the same thing. So think about the questions I wanted to ask or specific points that I wanted to make sure that they were aware. And we carried that through then when we got home as well. So if I couldn't fall asleep one night and I was thinking about a doctor's appointment that was coming up in a week, then I would just, write it, jot it down so that I would not forget to ask them those questions. And then that was just this piece of paper that went into the violet binder.